Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adam the Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Warriors and Writings, a print-and-play roll-and-write dungeon crawler by Nice at Dice Game. Without any further ado, let's dive in. In this video, we'll be looking at Warriors and Writings primarily as a solo game. The rules for competitive play, which I'll touch on at the end. To set up, first you'll need to choose a map and a character. In this case, we'll be using the Knight in the Hydra's Grotto. I have my sheets laminated for easy reuse, and I prefer to use wet erase markers over dry erase. But if you prefer regular paper and a pencil, that works fine too, just make sure you have an eraser. Alternatively, all downloads also include JPEGs of all character sheets and maps so that you can simply play on your computer if you prefer. You'll also need 3 standard D6s, and you'll want one that you can specifically differentiate from the other 2. When you start, you choose one talent. Since this map has us fighting the Hydra many times over, we'll take the Shield Bash talent, which allows us to damage our shield to deal damage to an enemy. We also get to pick 2 consumable items to start with. Since there's a good bit of poison on the map, we'll take the antidote. And then we'll also take a potion. This map doesn't have many locks, and the Knight is really good at recovering grit, so this seems like the best course of action. For this specific map, Hydras don't all start active, only the one with the 1 on it, so we'll circle it to show that it's currently active. And with that, you're ready to begin. Warriors and Writings is played out over a number of rounds, 40 for most maps, during which you'll be trying to defeat a boss and collect as much gold as possible. If you ever hit 0 HP, or if you fail to defeat the boss before the final round is over, then you lose. Along the way, you'll fight monsters, deal with traps, shop for equipment, and level up. Each round starts with rolling a pair of action dice. For the first round, we have a 2 and a 3. In general, you want higher numbers, but we can make this work. Once you have your action dice for the round, you'll look at your character sheet and decide what to do. Each character has 3 basic actions. The exact details are different for each character, but this includes a move action, an attack action, and a grit recovery action. For the Knight, Honorable Advance will allow you to move, but you cannot move away from a monster that you've attacked this round. Lunging Strike allows us to spend a die to move up to 1 space and then attack an adjacent enemy, including moving diagonally, which you normally can't do. The catch being that each enemy has an armor rating, and you must overcome that rating if you want to strike. Finally, you have Recover, which allows us to spend any die to recover all grit. Some characters unlock additional actions through talents, and some of these additional talents may require specific numbers in order to use them, but when you see a question mark, that means you can use any die. In this case, we'll spend the 2 to move 2 spaces, putting us right by the Snapper Crab. Then, we'll spend 3 to use Honorable Advance. We're already next to the crab, so we don't need to move first. To use this attack, you must spend a die equal to or greater than the enemy's armor in order to deal damage. Unfortunately, the crab has 4 armor, and our die is a 3. Whenever you use action dice, you can spend any number of grit to treat the number as higher or lower. So if you wanted to use a 3 as a 6, we could spend 3 grit. But in this case, we only need 1 to treat it as a 4. You're not supposed to actually change the die when you do this, but this really doesn't matter in solo mode. When you defeat a monster, cross it off. Most monsters only have 1 HP, so we'll collect 2 gold and 1 experience for defeating that crab, so be sure to mark it on your character sheet. After taking your actions, you'll check for enemy actions. We're not adjacent to a crab or cave hydra, so they can't do anything to us. However, we also need to check to see if we're within range of a spitting bullfrog, but luckily we're not. So the round is over. We'll mark the appropriate box and then continue onwards. In the next round, we move and defeat another crab. That's good. However, this time we ended in range of the spitting bullfrog's action. This means the Knight is now poisoned, which we'll mark on the character sheet. After action dice are rolled for the 3rd round, the Knight must spend 1 grit because of the poison. If you cannot, you take 1 damage instead. We could have the Knight drink the antidote to get rid of the poison, but we're going to do something else first. We'll spend 2 grit along with a 3 to move 5 spaces. When we reach this space, we have to temporarily stop since there's a trap. When this happens, we roll an extra die to see what happens. Bear in mind that grit can typically only be used to modify action dice, so we have to take what comes. A 2 comes up, which would normally poison us, but since the Knight is already poisoned, it has no effect. We then finish the movement on the potion space. If you end your movement on one such space, you get to choose a potion, an elixir, or an antidote. In this case, we'll go with the latter, then mark the space to show that we've used it. After that, we'll immediately use an antidote to cure the poison, and then we'll use a die to recover, restoring all grit. We'll then skip ahead a few rounds, and eventually we come to a pile of treasure. When this happens, you roll a d6 and gain the appropriate reward. In this case, we've gained 4 gold and will update the character sheet accordingly. We'll advance a few more rounds, and things have been going pretty well. We're ready to engage the first Hydra head, and it has 5 armor and 2 health. We could use 2 separate attacks to take it out, but this is why we took the shield bash talent earlier. This allows us to take 1 damage to the shield in order to deal damage to an adjacent enemy, and it doesn't even use an action die or check armor. We do this in addition to using a die to use lunging strike to deal another point of damage to the Hydra, cutting off its head. But you know what that means.
Cut off 1 head. 2 more shall take its place.
Now we circle Hydras 2 and 3 to show that they're active, but we can't reach them, so we'll need to use this Whirlpool. When you enter a Whirlpool, roll an extra die. Unlike most extra rolls, this one specifies that you can use grit to modify it. We want a 2, a 3, or a 6. Since we got a 5, we'll spend 1 grit to change it to a 6. This little cave here is full of treasure, including this map's only treasure chest. When you encounter a locked door or treasure chest, you can open it in 2 different ways. You can spend a key to open it without any hassle, or you can spend a 6 to break the lock. After unlocking a chest and ending movement in its space, you'll roll for treasure, but this time add 2 to the result of your roll. There's a couple other spaces on the map that we should take note of, and you may have noticed them at the beginning. Stopping on a well recovers all health and grit and removes all conditions, but you can only use each well once per game. Meanwhile, the shop allows you to spend gold to purchase items. Every shop has access to potions, elixirs, antidotes, and keys, and sometimes they'll have map-specific items too. Additionally, every character has something unique that only they can purchase at the shop. In the case of the Knight, you can spend 2 gold to remove all damage from your shield. Since the shield can take damage for you in addition to the shield bash, and this is cheaper than buying a potion, it's a pretty good deal. But do bear in mind that gold is your score, so everything you buy is lowering your final total. On one final note, every time you gain a multiple of 15 experience points, you'll be able to take another talent. For most maps, this means you'll get 2 extra talents in addition to your starting one. If you ever run out of health, the game is over and you've lost. However, the way you take damage is deterministic enough that this should be pretty rare, outside of the Labyrinth map. Additionally, you must defeat the boss of the map in order to count your score. In the case of the Hydra's Grotto, this means you have to take out every Hydra head that pops up. They're individually a lot weaker than normal bosses, but this means that you have to defeat it 7 times in total. Once the final round is over, if you successfully defeated the boss, then your final gold count is your score. And if this game is making you nostalgic for tabletop RPGs, you're certainly not alone. Today's video is brought to you by Quest Portal. As someone who used to game master, I can confidently say that the 2 most difficult parts of running a campaign are getting schedules lined up and finding people to play with. Quest Portal can't help with the former, but for the latter, it gives you all the tools you need to run and play RPGs over the web, including text and voice chat options, the ability to create and share maps and character sheets, and the ability to publicly roll dice. With a Pro subscription, it also gives you access to AI tools to create avatars or use their chatbot to help you look through dozens of SRDs in an instant. Whether you're a player or a GM, be sure to check out Quest Portal to level up your RPG experience today. Warriors and Writings currently has 8 maps and 5 characters. There are 2 base sets which have 3 maps and 2 characters each, and then you also have a couple standalone maps and the Bladecaster. The original set comes with the Knight, who you saw in this example, and the Mage, which uses mana to attack and has powerful spells that can hit multiple targets. In this set, you'll explore the Goblin Caves, which is probably the simplest and most straightforward map in the game, the Wizard's Tower, a multi-level dungeon with multiple paths downwards that give hidden treasure, and the Catacombs, a dungeon filled with undead creatures wherein you'll need to explore the corners of the map in order to destroy powerful artifacts which empower the Lich at the center of it all. In the Fury of the Wild set, you'll be able to play as the Berserker, a melee warrior that gets stronger as he takes more damage, and the Ranger, possibly the most complex character in the game with how you'll need to keep track of your arrows and recover them when possible. This set allows you to explore the Hydra's Grotto, which you saw here, the Marsh Town, wherein you'll need to confront a slew of aquatic monsters including 4 fishfolk leaders, and the Dreadwood, filled with scorpions, spiders, webs, and culminating in a fight against a boss with 3 different segments. Meanwhile, there are also add-ons sold individually. The Bladecaster character lets you play as a warrior with a magical sword, allowing you to spend mana for various effects and recover it by defeating enemies. You also have 2 standalone maps. The Labyrinth only has a single Minotaur as an enemy, but he's invincible and never stops chasing you. You can slow him down, but you can't stop him. And finally, the River Rush has a boat which drifts downstream every so often, acting as a mobile bridge. The boat has its own health, and if you don't take out the Kraken quickly at each stop, it'll sink, which might leave you stranded. You could theoretically buy the Bladecaster in one of the standalone maps to play, but it really is a much better deal to start out with one of the sets, as you'll be getting more than twice as much content for only $2 more. And finally, we have competitive mode. To play competitive, each player will need their own copy of the same map. You'll also need a character sheet for each player, though this can be the same or different at each player's discretion. Action dice should be shared between players. At the start of each round, roll the action dice once, and all players use the same 2 dice to determine their actions. Once the final round is over, all players who survived and defeated the boss compare their score. Whichever player has the highest gold wins. In case of a tie, the tied players will see who defeated the boss earliest. For this purpose, you'll place a circle in the round tracker when you defeat the boss. All in all, Warriors and Writings is a fun, light roll and write that does a good job of capturing the excitement of an RPG in a small package. Combat is quite simplistic, but each map and character does a really good job of feeling quite unique. For a really fun puzzle, try the River Rush map with the Ranger. With no shop in this adventure, you have to carefully plan out how you'll use those arrows. On the downside, I did find the competitive mode to be extremely lacking. There is literally 0 player interaction. You're merely comparing your scores at the end of the game. Don't get me wrong, it can certainly be fun to compare different strategies and different characters, but you're really not playing it together. But, as a solo experience, I did genuinely enjoy the game. And it does bear repeating that it does a really good job of making each experience feel unique. The different maps aren't merely a change of scenery. Each one feels very different and often has rules that will require you to approach them differently. In conclusion, I find Warriors and Writings to be worthy of a solid 7.4 out of 10. Warriors and Writings is currently available for download through itch.io or DriveThruRPG. If you're interested in purchasing or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Warriors and Writings? What roll and write games do you enjoy? Do you have any questions, remarks, or posting points of view? Leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. If you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.